There we are. Hello, welcome. This is, I think it's number 22 of Owen and Prince Chat D&D. And this time we are looking at Gabor Lux's Echoes from Fomalhaut 1, Beware the Beekeeper. I guess a declaration of interest is that Gabor is a friend of the show, but I know I paid for my copy.
He's also sponsoring.
Yeah.
This episode is also sponsored by EMDT, the first
Yeah.
Hungarian D20 society, and Big
Yes.
Cartel. Promo code SHILL.
Shill 50.
Yeah, for a
Shill 50 for
5%
50
discount.
European cents off.
For florins. Yeah.
I was going to say, Gabor. I've talked about Gabor a few times on the channel. I did review. I've got Echoes 1 to 8. I need to order like another 7 or something, or 6. I've got, and we've talked about Zintalan on the channel. I have not yet got. I need to catch up on some Echoes buying, and I need to get Kasura and Helvetia. But it's a both money and time thing of I want to make sure I'm rotating stuff into play if I'm buying it, but also I really do like Gabor's stuff. So, this is I think we can say ahead of time going to be a positive discussion and review, but not just because of the sweet sponsorship money. The 20,000 euro bucks each, which
the
equates
florins,
to, I think,
that's right.
Yeah, yes. The florins, yeah.
The handmade cuckoo clocks that he is bribed us with.
It's actually Hungary's main export.
Does your audience knows who Gabor Lux is?
Who is Gabor Lux?
That's right.
Do you want to tell us who Gabor Lux is?
Yeah.
The twist here would be if I'd set up Gabor in the green room on StreamYard and popped him in now. Said, "Who is Gabor Lux?"
Oh yeah.
But no. Yes. So, yes. Who is Gabor Lux, Prince?
Oh,
mysterious figure.
It's hardly enigmatic. The man has a blog. But no, Gabor Lux is one of the more senior sort of contributors to the OSR. He was an early contributor in Fight On, and I believe as well as Knockspell magazine.
Mm-hmm.
A universal subject matter expert. I believe he was. He may have even. I think he was sort of into old school. At least he was a very early adopter of old school gaming. That's for sure. And has written articles and free adventures. Before that, contributed to a ton of zines in the early days, and he's just sort of kept on trucking, and the material got better and better and better. And the author of course, the very highly acclaimed Castle Zintilan, or Zintalan, or whatever you want to call it, but also modules like In the Name of the Principle, or Sistema Tartaro Baza, and even the world of Fomalhaut itself. That really goes back to even 2008 or 2009.
And a few other settings more recently, as in City of Vultures, and Aurelian Kasura, and various settings like that. He's got multiple settings, and these are not setting books, full of vanity and background fluff. These are inspired by the Wildlands books. They're hex based, exploration based, and so he's got a big backlog of good work. This is his ongoing zine series. I should say, in terms of something he was published in Saving Throw 1, and I will take the opportunity now, I think, as we're closing in on sorting layout and stuff, slightly delayed by my commitments mostly, but to Saving Throw 2, which will be in aid of Anthony Husso, who's obviously got a few complicated situations going on in his life.
I see. Saving Throw is your personal zine, yes?
No, Saving Throw 1 was a charitable zine put out by Guy Fullerton and others.
Oh, I see.
Which Gabor, and Saving Throw 2 is going to be a charitable zine with the proceeds going to Tony Husso.
Oh, lovely.
You of course are also a contributor, Prince, aren't you? You wrote
yes, I have. But, I was unsure who was under the aegis, but yes, I was asked if I could.
So Gabor has also. Yeah, you did. You did. I have it. Gabor is also a great community contributor, is what I'm saying. He's a guy who, does things for the people. And so, yeah, though this is not to say there will not be flaws or things you can criticize in his work, but just to say, yes, of course, we are big Gabor fans here. I think he's a good guy, and a stalwart of our both the wider OSR community historically, but maybe more specifically for us, our kind of, call it CAG, whatever you want to call it, classic gaming sub
Yes, that's right.
community.
What would you
Yeah.
say? What's the appeal for again for people not who are not Gabor pilled yet?
Yeah. I think
What's his appeal?
it's that I just read stuff of his and it is space efficient and full of ideas, and I understand it when I read it, and I can run it at a table. And the relative rarity of that is something. Also, he's great at doing vanilla fantasy, if you want to call it that, of sword and sorcery bent usually, but vanilla fantasy well and in a way that is fun. And I like having twists on my genre, my subgenre, but it's good just to be like, yes, here is a ruined manor and it has some cool ideas in it and it's well presented. He also comes up with loads of other cool supporting materials, and we'll look at some of those in Echoes from Fomalhaut, because there are things like he has like the Bazaar of the Bizarre, obviously inspired by Fafnir and the Grey Mouser. He's got a list of filters and dusts. So just, extra resources that can give you ideas. That's what I would say. And Zintalan, which I've run, Zintalan or Zintilan. And that's a mini mega dungeon. It's kind of a very, very large dungeon, basically. And it's very characterful and funny and memorable. Great loot, great danger. And it's I recommend that. I've got a video on it. I'd recommend that too. But yeah, what about you? What would you say is distinctive about Gabor as a designer?
Well, I definitely agree with you that it's like on the one hand, there's of course his general style is eminently practical, but at the same time, yeah, there's like an atmosphere of like sword and sorcery, a spirit of adventure. I don't know what you would call it, but this feeling of like antiquity that he manages to impart to his.
It's partly because Gabor was actually there. Like the first film Gabor ever saw new in the cinema was Birth. He saw Birth of a Nation, and he actually remembers Birth of a Nation. He was the Hungarian ambassador to America.
And whoa.
I'm not saying he approved of everything in the film.
He was a great fan of Leni Riefenstahl. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Did you know Leni Riefenstahl returned to making critically acclaimed films in the 1990s? This is
we actually don't know anything about Gabor. We just asked the OSR Discord what they knew about him, and we're just
Gabor.
We asked Yokai Gall about who is this Gabor character? Yeah.
And we got a very detailed description of him that I'm sure is 100% accurate.
Which is definitely accurate. Yeah. A great supporter of MAR Barker. Yeah.
Especially his fictional output.
His fictional, not so much the RPGs. He didn't really care for those.
Gabor doesn't really approve of the adventures that he wrote. But
Okay. All right. We have it out of our system.
Great. No, we do have a quote before we go further. We'll just we'll use this as our intro before we switch over. We did have a question from a comment actually on one of our videos, which was, so we take comments, not like in terms of improvements. We don't take.
I don't improve that.
We don't have constructive criticism. We don't want that.
Yeah.
But no, it's someone asked, and this is kind of relevant because think about the early days of what we call the OSR, if you want to call it that.
Sure.
Troubled term, but saying, what do you imprints? He said to me, he didn't say it to you. What do you imprints think about advanced swords and sorcerers of Hyperborea, about Ash? Because it's obviously kind of it's a 3E development of AD&D, and we have talked about Hyperborea before, I think, a little bit. It's not really something I am an expert on. I've read adventures, so I'm going to be less expert in it than some people. But yeah, what do we think about Hyperborea as a game?
Well, sword and sorcery adjacent. Good question.
Yeah.
So I have definitely read and reviewed Lost Treasures of Atlantis by I think a gentleman called Chainsaw. Shout out, which was a very good adventure. With I only have an impression, right, of astonishing swordsmen and sorcerers of Hyperborea. I like the sort of commitment to a more pulpy, more sword and sorcery roots
Yeah.
version of AD&D. I saw a lot of like subclasses, which always kind of makes me nervous, but I think I read through a few of those. That seems to be okay. It does have a problem where maybe it's a bit too much. Like all of the adventures I know have a sort of they're written in a certain sort of Baroque house style, almost Clark Ashton Smith like, right? Where instead of like left and right, you use like sinister and dexter and sort of really archaic verbiage that makes it a little annoying to parse because it's ultimately like technical writing. And I imagine something like that sort of permeates the rest of the book as well. But I think this sort of fulfills a niche that you would naturally gravitate towards if you're in a certain sort of like I guess segment. It does seem to have carved out its own sort of like place with a
It
small
seems
and
to have it
dedicated
has a
audience.
community.
Yeah,
Like it has a fan base, maybe a better word. No,
yeah,
I
for
agree.
sure.
No, I agree. I think I wonder as well if it's not like there's a few games all the way from 2000 or whatever, but I'm thinking about 2001. I think it's Castles and Crusades as an example, which obviously Gary published stuff for, because it was something that necromancer would take work with him. But I think it's something you see. There are some Forerunner games, and I don't mean Ash therefore is outdated. What I mean is there are games which feel, when you look at them, like they were necessary in opening up the space, but it's been natural that people have either gone back to the original games, i.e. OD&D, AD&D, or have found their own niche with a different system they want, like Seven Voyages of Xylothon, or whatever the thing is. Like, and I think Ash counts as one of those because in some ways it's fairly early in the process compared to now, 2025.
Yeah, I think it's in the third edition since, and I should add that like I'm almost always like if people try to send me like game systems, I always politely refuse. Sometimes I give for a review, right? I usually refuse them. I usually also give an explanation. I'm very critical of like game systems. I think there's way too many in the OSR, and a lot of them are totally vestigial. But I don't get the idea that Astonishing and that Ash has that problem. I feel that like they looked at what was already present, and they figured out like, okay, this is something that we can actually genuinely improve upon. This is something we can emphasize. Okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to make a D&D that's really specifically geared towards people who are really into like the sword of sorcery aspect of it, and that's a non-significant. Sorry, that's a non-trivial part of like of people that would be into something like AD&D, right? Like the more mature systems. Same for Seven Voyages of Xylarthan, I guess, which has its own sort of like peculiarities to like sort of it's more amendable to a type of like fantasy. And there's I think there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's like one of the good reasons to if you're going to publish a game system, it should probably do something that isn't already being done 50 times over.
Oh yeah, it's indeed, and we've talked about this, and we will not dive into this rabbit hole, but we've talked about it too with rules lights. Part of the one of the things too with everyone has a rules light is you can have cynicism for various reasons, but partly there is just a problem that you're like, there's just that you could just pick up another system that's very similar to yours and use it rather than making your own, and you'd save the time. It's it's a very full space, I think is the point. And
how many ultralights do you need? Right. How many what are their differing characteristics? This is like the tyranny of small, like ultra.
Indeed. The bigotry of small differences. And I think, of course, I mean, Gabor has put out in Hungarian and English at different points slight systems. I think 3 base systems, like a bit like Castles and Crusades. You won't appreciate that comparison, perhaps, but I don't know. But he himself has done that. Yeah.
One of his earlier adventures actually was for Castles and Crusades. I remember that now.
I thought I know indeed.
Tower of. Let me think briefly. Sorry,
but obviously, Helvetia itself, I think, is if I'm recalling correctly, is a sort of spin-off development of his Epic 6 style work on that stuff, and that's partly, I think, a reflection.
Strabonus is the one I was thinking of, by the way. Yeah,
but I think that's one thing is you hear this from, you hear different people, especially people who are not from America is the most relevant thing. You and I we're not from America, but our experiences will be different again. But people who are like, I'm thinking about Shahar, who occasionally I think comes and watches us, but who like was like, yeah, in Israel the first edition we got was second edition, and that was just what everyone played. Like that was the edition we have. They still play it because they had translations into modern Hebrew and stuff.
You hear something similar in Brazil.
Yeah. I mean, the less said about the Brazilian OSR. Don't get Pahehe in here; he'll be very upset.
There's the real bro OSR, the Brazilian OSR.
Yeah, the only true bro OSR. We have a mole on the inside of the Brazilian OSR.
That's right.
But yeah, and so some of it I think is that you have people who ended up. I think my impression is Gabor did end, and he will have to correct us in the chat or the comments, but ended up a bit coming towards third edition via the disillusionment with the Gumph that was coming out in the 90s. And so you get people play, and it's an edition that's out, people are playing it, and then you find ways to adjust it to your sensibility. But I'd say Fomalhaut, the Fomalhaut zines and Zinterlan are sort of, they are instead based on a kind of maybe slightly not always clear hybridization of OD&D, AD&D concepts, I think.
Like they're not, like they're it not made, unlike many other similar efforts, say for example in Fight On magazine, which I'm in the process of reviewing. Very often people will like, I had one example. Somebody published, I believe that it was maybe even Calithina himself, but publishes an adventure for Arduin. I don't know if you know Arduin that well, but it's this is like some late 70s, early 80s, one of the first like sort of homebrew OD&D hacks that came out, and it's just a big mess of optional rules and tables and like huge amounts of magic items and wacky monsters and that sort of stuff. But the whole thing with that is that playing Arduin is not like a complete rule system in the same way that OD&D is also usually something that people kind of mix and match and pick and choose. But if you bring out an adventure then for general publication, you can have situations where people don't really know, like, hey, what's going on here? Why aren't you using this rule and that sort of stuff? And Gabor, I think to his credit, in Echoes from Fomalhaut, he immediately sort of states his major assumptions. So that's always and it's really always the case with Gabor Lux. It seems very rooted in sort of practice. It's strong atmospherically, of course. It has that sort of like it isn't the whimsy, but it has that sort of escapist bent, that fantastical bent, right? Where you can tell he puts effort into
it is
that.
not
But
it is
always
not
pure
Macrisian
gameplay.
naturalism. Yeah, it's not Macrisian naturalism.
No.
In terms of, and that's it. When we think about where this is, it is not in terms of products that I've recommended, and we've discussed one of these. But it's not Macrisian naturalism. It's not Axe 2, but nor is it Ben Lawrence and his wish resetting. It is very much, it's swords and sorcery, but with a kind of playful and adventurous bent, perhaps.
I think it's closer to Ben Lawrence than Macris. I think that's he's not a with Gabor Lux, you can tell that there is more sort of like attention paid to verisimilitude. I think that's one of his strengths also, is that it's sort of it has this sort of like mythical quality to it, but at the same time it feels pretty grounded. I think he understands that, like, you don't have to always throw the most wacky, far out concepts at the players. It is sort of like, you kind of have to like layer that and build that up and that sort of stuff. So sometimes all you need are giant frogs or whatever, weird bandits or something like that. But no, it's definitely not that sort of this idea of detail that might not be, that it's kind of like inert but is included there for verisimilitude reasons, or to sort of allow people to interact with it at a full range of motion. It's not really what he does. It's just no, they're beautiful open sandboxes that are interactive, but
Yeah,
most of it is just like very much focused on sort of interactive detail, gameplay, and
yeah.
you get some nice fluff thrown in there for
Yeah.
good measure. That's kind of
Yeah,
like
I was
the
going to say, I think
philosophy
to,
there.
to relate it to what what we sometimes use, there's no single formulation, but we've sometimes used as the pillars, the three pillars of classic gameplay, i.e. world first, player driven, and skill based, like challenge based, challenge determined. He's very into those. Like the world first doesn't mean loads of world building that you read loads of long stories. It means the world exists separately from the characters, and the characters can interact. So it's sandbox. It's definitely player driven because it's very much like, well, here's all these different motives to go into stuff. Here's these different things you can do, and challenge. They're definitely challenging. Like they're not. Zintalan is pretty deadly. Not everything he writes is quite as upfront deadly, I don't think.
No,
But
but he has a
yeah,
nasty, he has a mean right hook that
yeah,
occasionally comes out, and that's good. But at the same time, it's
mm,
also not. If you go in the other direction, right? So it's
mm-hmm.
very much focused on gameplay, but it's not. Uh, it's not like, say, overly complex. Or if you go into, say, the Anthony Huzo and Mont Cook corner, or even some of my own writing as of late
Yep,
with like Slit Hive. It's uh again, there's still elements of verisimilitude and world building in there, but it's also, it gets pretty complicated, and you're really like
mm.
going deep into that sort of like challenge meta. And I feel Gabor's stuff is a bit more naturalistic.
Approachable.
Yeah, he definitely
Yeah.
knows how to, like, again, throw a mean punch in there. That's for sure. They're not coddling you up, but at the same time, they're not these sort of like uh, ornate set pieces or something like that. I
No,
think
no,
it's more
no, no.
tends
That,
towards
yeah,
more towards
yes,
the
you're right to say that.
naturalistic.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. He does mention just to demonstrate how ancient Gabor is. He does mention having contributed to disc mags as one of his experiences of being part of doing zines. Yeah. So in this issue, we do start with you got a table which lets you find the nature persona, what they're selling, in a complication. So you could have a deranged drunk selling essences, but they are adulterated, or double dealing gladiator dealing heresies, but he's closing up shop. The name is inspired by Fafnir and the Grey
Fritz
Mouse, of
Lieber's
course.
Langmar.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
but yeah. So
but
yeah, just that's a
yeah,
Susan.
what? No,
That's a
wait a minute.
slightly. You're
Can we
desperate
go
to use
back?
this. You're gonna generate your entire campaign based on this, aren't you?
No. I was going to say this is very much a Wilderlands of high fantasy kind of Judges
Yeah,
Guild style
yeah, yeah,
uh
yeah. The idea that
table
you
for.
use
Yeah,
tables, random
on
tables.
this in the spur of the moment, if you're like,
Mm,
geez, I don't know, and then you have this
mhm.
lying about somewhere, you throw a couple of dice, and then with this, you generate a detail, and you quickly riff off of something. And this is what I meant, where what I said is like, there's like definitely he puts a lot of effort into the sort of like the atmosphere of it as well.
Mm, yeah. I was going to say we have another table here for what caravan goods and what you might generate and what might be in a caravan. And yeah, as you say, this does give the rules of the game his presumptions. So it's mostly written for advanced Dungeons and Dragons. Um, Monetary treasure is relatively scarce. He does have essentially, yeah, if you adjust the treasure values, adjust the multiplier as well, essentially he is giving you, I suppose the implication here is he's giving you 20% of the treasure if you want to have strict gold for XP, because you squander
Yeah,
it through hedonism with a ×5 multiplier.
yeah, that's right.
There is a challenge there because, of course, it's something where, and different products of his do have different assumptions for this, I should say. But he's saying for Echoes and for a lot of his work, this is the assumption that you get money, but then you blow it. And this is very much like I think there's another one here. The gods are limited in their powers, but actively involved. There are definitely a few references here to, this is more Liber. Liber more than Conan, actually, as in Fafnir and Grey Mouser more than Conan. But the idea that, Fafnir and the Grey Mouser constantly blow all their money. There are gods and demons and they're involved in the world, but, There's a kind of background assumption. There is a cleave rule. Do you use cleave? Have you ever used a cleave rule?
Well,
I've not since I ran
I've
fourth
played
edition.
Axe, so
Yeah,
I've definitely I didn't run Axe,
played
but
that.
I played it. Yeah, so I know how cleave works. That's for sure.
Mm,
So I've
yeah,
seen it in action. I don't in my current AD&D game. I don't use cleave.
yeah. Um, it's an interesting one. It definitely, just as a specific rule, it's one of those ways which makes fighters with fighting advantages and particularly fight weapons slightly stronger because they're just going to do more damage more often because when they hit, they will always use up all their damage rather than like spend 12 damage on a 3 hit point kobold.
I mean, the
But
ability to
yeah,
transfer that damage
yeah,
that makes them exponentially more
mm,
effective against
yeah,
multiple
yeah,
opponents. And yeah,
yeah,
especially if you would have exceptional strength or something like that, where you have like
yeah.
+6 to
Well,
damage, you're
also,
gonna get a
because
lot of
in
them. Yeah.
advanced first edition, of course, versus kobolds is the example, but versus mooks, the whole point is that you're attacking, you're gaining multiple attacks against people who are,
If
you know,
less than one hit
yeah,
dice,
less
yeah,
than one
that's
hit die. Yeah,
true. But
yeah.
the
So with those people,
amount
you
of
should
times
just be
that
killing
comes
all of
into
them.
play is that's it's kind of limited. Whereas this carryover damage, you're going to see
Is
that.
more regular. Yeah,
Yeah, you're going to see that throughout the rest of the game. Yeah, so that's makes
yeah,
fighters
yeah.
a lot
No,
tougher.
it's strong. It's strong. It's obviously I use weapon spec, so which mostly equates to a +1 to Thaco, and you start at 3-2 on attacks in your spec. And that's a similar thing, the idea of just increasing the efficiency of the fighter. And it's interesting, that's something which is not a particularly rare concern for those of us who run some form of advanced, that fighters are good, but there can sometimes be a sense of, oh man, it'd be fun to give the fighters thing extra to do. And I don't know what's more powerful, 3-2 attack or 3-2 is I guess more powerful than carryover, but carryover is very powerful if you're fighting non-gigantic stuff because
You gotta
yeah,
be creative, right? Like
mm,
I'm thinking, what if you have that weapon specialization, but then you go dart specialization, okay,
mm,
and you're an orc fighter assassin, and you
yeah,
poison all of your darts
dark,
that you
yeah, yeah,
throw. It's like I think the limit is like 10 or something, so you throw 5 of them per round. Like
yeah,
I feel weapon specialization. I I did use it in the beginning. I believe there were some AD&D people that didn't quite like it. At some point, I was like, you know what, let's just use weapon proficiencies. I think the the main argument for weapon specialization not being so hot is that basically, uh, somebody's just going to be limited to like one particular type of weapon, and that bonus kind of ends up sort of offsetting even the magical bonuses of like some other weapons. So you'll be stuck with one particular magic weapon for longer. You
yeah,
can use it. It's probably fine, but I personally don't use it.
yep. Magic is limited to +3, and magic spells are limited to 5th level or lower. So, and this, I know
It's a bit
Gabor
my
in other context.
OD&D.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Gabor in other contexts has run Epic 6. And I think Zintalan used a version of Epic 6 rules. Again, correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, Gabor. But I think it's an assumption that the game doesn't need to go to those super high levels. And of course, we will tend to the other perspective in some ways that we like this kind of high level gameplay. But I think certainly one thing is it is the power cap, if you like, the way of saying, look, the gameplay mostly happens in these levels. It's not Mudcore because he's still saying, look, you're getting 5th level spells.
It's a
you're yeah,
heroic fantasy for
yeah,
sure, but
yeah,
yeah, it
exactly.
kind of reminds me of I wonder if this was written in a time when he discovered Seven Voyages of Zilarthan,
Mm.
because a lot of these rules conventions kind of remind me of that particular.
It's
Uh,
2018, so I don't know when Zalathan came about, but it's
I
2018 was
Yeah,
this
well,
scene.
but probably pretty close. A lot of these rules as well, like the carousing, where you have to spend gold in
Mm.
order to get the XP, is very much uh, that's a conceit of like Zilarthan. It also has I believe it has a cleaving rule.
Hmm.
If not, we at least use one.
Mm-hmm.
definitely has sort of like the more sort of capped, like sort of low powered kind of like feel to it, where yeah, I think that's also conducive to sort of sorcery as well. I think where
Yeah,
a
yeah.
lot of the adventures
Yeah,
take place.
indeed. Yeah, I don't
These are not
think.
Hercules, right?
No, no, and I think practically, of course, it's affecting such a cap affects a minority of campaigns. Like, I
Right.
have a few players at ninth in my main campaign. You know, it's not like I'm like, so at the moment I'm not even kind of
Yeah,
like, man, this
it's
would
more
limit
that it
me.
pertains to the DM and the world that
Yeah,
he's kind of like
yeah,
creating. But
yeah,
yeah, pretty good.
exactly. And it means you're saying, look, this is the rough cap, and of course some people are going to go above this, like he does. You know, there's no level cap, but it's just describing kind of some assumptions.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the zine has 3 adventures in it. 2 are set on Aurelion, his kind of semi-Celtic themed island, which issues 3 and 4 of Echoes have the gazetteer for, and I think it is out as a campaign setting book now, or is it going to be out as a campaign setting book? One or the other. Aurelion. But yes, he
Let's
has
see.
two adventures set on that. He has a couple other things, like he has his morale rules he uses that his friends came up with, and he has another random table. But yeah, he has 2 adventures set on Aurelion and 1 other that's just kind of here's another location. And Aurelion, he did run on, and it starts with, I think, is it a supplement J or whatever for Wildlands. It starts at what he calls Heartless Hugo's Keep. It was his initial setting, and hence why the first adventure, which is the Caves of the Beekeeper or Beware the Beekeeper, is near Heartless Hugo's Keep. But yeah, we should chat a bit about this. Just as an example, this one is a good example of it is a an adventure of his, and it is the first adventure he shows in his zine. By the way, we do have there's I don't know, is this in the wrong place? Is this from Gomp? But just to show some of the maps that he puts out with his stuff, nice blank maps on good quality paper.
Certainly.
Yeah. But yes, this comes with the Mysterious Manor, and it comes with Beware the Singing Caverns, which is Beware the Beekeeper. Oh, yep, here we go. And Red Mound. So Gabor says Aurelion was out in a player's guide, but not a proper setting book other than the zone issues. Yep, great. Useful to know. So yeah, you can get that at emdt.bigcartel.com. As we said, our code is shill50, for which you get 50 florins. 50 florins off the
30
price.
pieces of silver. Yeah. But in all seriousness, the campaign setting detail, that's also probably very much I mean, that really used to be an OSR approach as well, and that's all that all goes back to Wilderlands, where I guess if you were around in the D20 era, you would have very sort of like bloated, sort of heavy setting books that were just chock full of, like, you would have like it's almost like an intrusive level of like detail, right? You're a complete gazetteer, you have a timeline you have to abide by, all these super powerful NPCs, and then like in general, extra classes, magic items, feats, endless feats, prestige classes, monsters, all this shit. And the OSR is kind of a reaction to that bloat, where it became more about, you have a few tentpole ideas and you sort of generate an outline, but you leave it up to the DM to sort of like you give them a lot of, like, you give them more empty space to work with. But you give them a few like salient details, or things that would be important to know, or that would be interesting to like riff off of. You do provide those, but it's a lot more I guess, I don't know what the right term for it is, like a impressionist. At least it's not as deterministic. It's almost like you have a few main lines, and for the rest, everybody's probably going to make a customized. It's the assumption is that you'll want to customize more to a
Yeah.
greater degree.
Yeah. I mean, I think it is in literary terms, not in other terms, but in literary terms, is modernist. There's a refreshing of the language and a simplification and a redistillation of how things are spoken about. And that's a very pretentious way of saying that he keeps it simple, but the things that he's putting down are pregnant with meaning. Like you get a lot more meaning into, that you purify the dialect of the tribe. That's Eliot. But like you boil it down and say, look, this is a way to get across a lot of meaning in a short amount of text, without needing to be like, oh yes, and then let me tell you the fantasy history of this place in a way that has no game use. And let me do this and let me do that. He's getting across, and you see this with this Beware the Beekeeper. This is the advice given to those who'd go exploring in the caverns close to heartless Hugo's keep. It is one many have disregarded at their own risk. However, the strange hermit is not the only denizen of the old cave system, even if he is the most unpredictable and dangerous. Bandits have been raiding honest traders along the road. Shady sorts said to be trafficking with orcs have also been sighted. Deeper still are mysteries left over from the earlier ages of Aurelion, and some who have passed through the 3 cave mouths become rich. With promises like that, why worry about some bees? That's very pungent, isn't it? It's very condensed. It's very kind of heavy with meaning, I think, or heavy with promise.
It's a good pitch for sure. You give people a good lead in, but at the same time, you don't bore people endlessly with I don't know, meaningless historical or anthropological detail.
Yeah.
I guess you this is again also Judges Guild style. You just present this sort of location, and you more or less leave it up to the DM to kind of like infer a lot of the details. You kind of focus on like what was like a few. You focus on essential information, and occasionally you'll give a little bit of like a flavorful or atmospheric detail. So it does genuinely feel kind of like a distinctive place. It has its own kind of like weird vibe, but it's not exhaustively described or anything like that.
Yeah, and of course it'd be
Something you
less
need to
weird
interpret.
and less exciting if for the players and for the DM if it's exhaustively described. The idea of the suggestive, the idea that there is an implied world and that there are things I think part of the aesthetic fun of exploratory classic D&D is this sense of kind of, and there is more than just gameplay fun, there is aesthetic fun, is the idea that this world is weird and interesting rather than being someone's novel. It's the strange place you go into, and I think Gabor does that well. Yep. We'll flip to the next page on this, but you can see, you've got rules.
Can we focus for a moment on the layout porn, which is also something that's actually just
layout.
Listen, a little bit of a concession. Yeah, who knew that the real layout king is none other than
Gabor Lux,
the perfidious Gabor Lux himself.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, he's Hungarian, so he's the layout regent. But you're right.
But again, just a simple concession to utility. Here we go. You have all these different hit points. You have large groups of bandits. Here we go, and you just present that in a way that's easy to read or easy to use. You can just cross them out or whatever. It's easy to go down the
taken
lines.
this over. I've taken this over in stuff I write. I think I've seen it occasionally in footprints as well. But it's not super common, the idea that you're like, look, here is a list of all the hit points of a bunch of the monsters, and you can just cross them out as they get depleted. And there are rules for if they get depleted. Oh, if they're depleted, counter no encounter. Below the well, there are 2d6 mossmen. Indeed.
Yeah, I don't know. Like it's nice to see a simple concession to utility that you would arrive at if you're just playing off and go, oh yeah, I should probably pre-roll all of that. So otherwise I have to do it during play. Here we go. I just do it in advance now.
Which I do sometimes. Sometimes, but oh yeah, I'll just roll this, and it doesn't take that long if you know what you're doing. But it is a way of cutting it out. If you're buying a product and it does it for you, great. You don't have to do it yourself at any point.
Right. Exactly.
There's italicized guidance on behavior, and we get our first rooms. And so this is a opportunity for us just to quickly look at, and maybe we'll find another page and look at some room layout on that as well. But the 3 cave mouths.
There's other things. But the beekeeper himself has actually been slyly introduced here.
Yeah.
The villain of the piece, Owen.
The villain, is this because he's a hippie?
No. When was the last time you saw a hippie wearing what seems like dirty resin reinforced birch bark? Well, maybe every day. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. He cannot. Yeah, his limbs are caked with a black filth.
There's
His
also,
face is
again,
covered in
there's
thick
no
veil.
complicated. We don't really
No,
know very much about the beekeeper.
no.
We kind of have to sort of. Oh, okay, this is just
Yeah,
a loon.
infer. You have to infer.
Yes,
That's
that's
right.
right. And
Um,
perhaps some ambient details in the in the caverns themselves will shed a little bit more light on what he's doing here. This is it's like, okay, here you go, and you give a like only a little bit of you give out a little bit of detail. It's very odd, a bee themed druid, um,
yeah.
and for the rest you kind of have to like you have to like make it up,
Yep.
but it gives you enough to go with, enough
No, exactly.
material to work with.
Exactly. I was going to say, what? Let's do. Let's. I think the map is here. Is that the map? We'll just quickly look at the map. Yeah,
What do we
this is
think
level
about
one.
the
This is
map?
level one. The level on the map. It's it's not scaled, so
That's right.
that's a Gabor. I think other Gabor products are available, but yes, no, I like things having easy scale. I mean, not having to double check something else to find out what the scale is, and here it's not completely clear to me what scale everything is because rooms don't have aren't scaled either. Like you don't have a size on the rooms, so
That's right. That's
yeah.
right. And even if you checked, you would have noticed that the random encounters, in fact, are also
Mm,
they're calibrated not to an abstract
mm,
objective time unit, although secondarily they are every 10 minutes in highly
mm.
populated areas.
But it's essentially
Otherwise, it's
every
just
time
if you
they are
move
in a
from room
room.
to room. Indeed,
Yeah.
indeed.
Mm.
But
So yeah.
this is, this is one of these things where, again, if I don't know. I kind of feel like if somebody's been, playing D&D for like so fucking long, and you know, uh, they're clearly like very, very competent at it. Probably at some point you just arrive at like I guess a sort of like a comfortable level where you figure out, oh,
Mm.
okay, I actually don't really need this. Usually, you sort of eyeball it, and the precise
Well,
details.
one thing
uh,
in
yeah,
dungeons, it's funny that in what it kind of depends on the dungeon and the situation. It depends on the scenario.
yeah,
For instance, right now, like I'm running the guys at the party is trying to get out of a Fey realm back into a kind of semi-magical forest. They want to go to Baba Yaga's hut. We talked about this last time, and we were fighting.
right.
And we used inches of ground scale with like 1 inch equals 5 feet, just for simplicity. Was the way we did it, like 1 inch. So essentially, we're like, okay, 1 inch equals 5 feet ground scale, and we're fighting it out. No grid, but with rulers. Other times it's good for when we did Giants G1 with the same players. I had full maps out, but obviously sometimes you're just like, look, essentially each room, practically in this dungeon, each room is 1 turn of movement. You get to the next room with 1 turn of movement.
But
And
before you
if
know it,
yeah, yeah,
you're making a series
yeah,
of dots that are connected by
yeah,
lines. Okay,
yeah, yeah,
that's the danger, the threat
yeah, yeah.
looming on the
No, I agree. I
horizon.
agree. I agree that it's a danger, but I'm saying
But
it's
on the other
something
hand,
you
this
do
is
understand. Yeah.
it's such a
What I mean is
complex, lovely map with like, oh,
sorry.
there's a little bit of verticality
Yeah.
in there as well, there's
Yeah.
natural
Yeah.
hazards, there's
Yeah, the
all
map
that
is not a
stuff.
stupid map or a dull map. It's quite a complicated map.
Of course not.
So what I was going to say was that there's a degree of practicality where you sometimes just understand, like here, look, essentially, if we just assume rooms are 60 feet apart inside,
But
60, or
isn't that
then,
story gaming?
is that story game? No,
That is
that is
story
not story.
gaming.
That's not. It's not story gaming, of course, because then just things are 60 feet apart. But I'm thinking, I wonder. Again, Gabor can defend himself. He's a grown man. I mean, as someone who was in fact with the winged hussars at Vienna, he can defend himself. But certainly, there's a degree to which practicalities. Sometimes you go like, okay, you don't need to know every single inch here because this I don't need it here. Other
Isn't it the
scenarios you
case
do
that,
need more. Yeah.
Owen, the one moment you get rid of inches, before you
Mm.
know it, everybody is wearing fox costumes at the
Full
table. They're
time,
they're
full time.
speaking
Yeah.
in high pitched,
Well,
silly yet
well,
demonic voices.
I've offered it as criticism. I am criticizing the lack of ground scale. I'm just so don't come to me about that.
They're
But
not
I
uh,
think,
they're not rolling
yeah,
dice anymore. They're using
no,
the
no.
optional rules where they use
Everyone has a
poker
maneuver.
chip
Everyone
based
has a playbook.
troika initiative. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
reaching into the DM's mouth and retrieving poker chips, and
Well,
before
I
you
think
know it,
Troika
that's
initiative was when Kosygin foreign policy failed and Brezhnev took over.
I don't know what any of that.
I don't know what
Brezhnev,
that means.
is that
In
in what
Holland, we
book
haven't
of
heard of those
X-wing does that
guys.
happen? And what
Yes,
book of
it's book
yeah?
17 of X-Wing,
Okay,
the
is
Troika
that
Gambit.
before or after the Bacta War? Okay,
Yeah,
all right, moving on.
yeah.
Sorry.
Uh, but yeah, I think the thing is, what you can see is sometimes maybe this is a good thing in terms of I realize sometimes when I'm writing stuff, and it's playtesting tends to clear this up a bit anyway, but you realize there's stuff you assume that other people are not assuming when they read it. And as you say, the fact that random encounters are for keyed areas or every turn they spend in a high traffic area, which I guess you've got to determine somewhat as a DM.
Right, that's
But
right.
it's something you assume as the writer that this is kind of you know what's going on, and so other people will, and sometimes we don't. And here, yeah, a rough ground scale would be helpful. Is what
Yeah,
I'm saying.
I think
Yeah.
this is also one also where I don't know. I try to
Mm-hmm.
like sort of imagine uh what's the difference
Mm-hmm.
between, yeah, let's say you get it wrong, you mistakenly interpret one area as high
Yeah.
traffic that may or
Mm.
may not have been high traffic. Yeah, it doesn't matter that much.
Yeah.
It's a
Or at least
comparatively
it shouldn't.
trivial.
No, I
It's
agree.
just a
I agree.
general guideline. It's more there's a level of sort of, I guess, you're assumed to be able to like figure out a lot of this stuff. It's fine.
Yeah. But yeah, here's some room keys. I guess we'll look at some of these. This is there is a tavern. There's a tavern in the area, in these caves. There are 2 torchlit rooms, bandits, suspicious merchants, NPCs who could be an old acquaintance. There's a
What do we
pot-bellied
think
orc.
about
Isn't this story
Kruglak's
gaming? Isn't this
Tavern?
also story gaming? Having an orc
This
bartender.
does seem kind of whimsical. Ooh,
Yeah, I think this is LARP.
very
Isn't this
difficult.
LARPing? Isn't this LARPing? Um,
He knows a thing or two about the caverns and the wilderness and can help find illicit deals for a
yes,
fee.
for a fee.
It's true. That's
There,
true. But
there's
how
a locked
much?
hideout. Yeah, 1 in 3
Yes.
of fugitive hiding from the law. Uh, that I would say that kind of thing. I quite like the fact, and it is very much low information
Yeah.
in some respects, and that's not a criticism or praise. It's just it's part of the effect. But the fact, like, look, here is an extra thing that could happen. Maybe you should think as the DM, you're like, okay, so I know there's a bandit from there. They've gone and fought a bandit elsewhere or something, or they've gone after
Yeah.
someone in Backlin and he's on the run. Maybe I could put him here. There's a natural thing there. Or maybe, when they're exploring, they break stuff open, they find you roll, it's a 1 or a 1 or 2 on a D6. So you're like, oh, I need to, and just creates a bit of organic life that wasn't there before. Is one thing about randomization is that it's the fact it springs surprises on the DM is an
Yeah. It also
underrated
keeps you
thing, I
sharp.
think.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
that's what I mean. Yeah, it's the kind of thing that some people would really hate, and I think some people would would be like, this is awful. But I think you're like, no, it's something which is part of the fun as a DM. Things happen that you don't expect, but also the fact you have to create and you have to engage with your players on this kind of, on that is
Well,
fun.
there's sort of like more. I guess this is another one where this is kind of there is a bit of a divergence between, like, you've got people that are very much into like Gygax D&D, and then you have people that are more
Mm,
into OSR D&D, which is more rooted
mm,
in Gygax D&D. 1E AD&D is like the most Gygaxian of
mm,
Gygax D&D,
yeah.
and OD&D is more you know uh, there's more rooted in unpredictability, definitely, like random
Mm,
effects, wacky stuff in the dungeon you can experiment with, but also more thinking on your feet,
yeah.
uh, more improvisation. Whereas perhaps in Gygax style D&D, you would be more I you know probably it's definitely still there, but also like random
Mm,
encounters are more like, okay, this is just a um this is essentially a sort of tax or a system that's been created either because there would be natural movement within these places that you're exploring, and it's the random encounters are there to do that, but they also have an in-game effect of like making sure that time remains a significant factor, and that's like that's their primary purpose, and
and that's a
the
gamish point. You've
unpredictability
come
is
up with these things
maybe
from a game.
secondary.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Certainly, I think basically I'm sort of much more. We've talked about this before. I'm much more pro whimsy probably than some people. I mean, maybe this is why I use second edition rules in my game.
Are those
I'm just so
whimsical?
pro whimsy. Yeah, no, not really.
I definitely think in 2E the spell descriptions, I found those very whimsical. I found all there's a sort of an annoying language I remember in 2E that drove me nuts when I tried to run Lords of Madness, and then it's just there's a way where the refusal to make like a definitive statement, like the book is just kind of like suggesting
Yeah.
something. I mean, in some
I was going to
cases that's
say
probably
this
fine, but
gets
for like
worse and
hard and
worse in
fast
different
rules, it's terrible.
games. Like, yeah, like it's you end up reading power descriptions in World of Darkness books, and you're like, and you can just tell the author like, and maybe something could happen, and you're like, no, what? I mean, does it happen? Maybe something could happen. Yes, I think the whimsy in rules writing is not desirable. Liam, OD&D is much more kind of there's much more experimental stuff, and also you have contradictory rules across some supplements, or rather, you have rules which require a lot more DM decision on how it works. How
And
does this balance with
the
this?
wildly different leveling rates
Yeah,
that eventually led into I think the famous
yeah,
Monty Hall campaigns, right?
yeah,
And probably also led to the creation of like rules that I think like training time may have been a partial
mm,
response to that, but also just a rule that prevents you from gaining more XP than you need to level once
yeah,
in one session.
yeah. Indeed, and it is interesting, by the way, as seeing in a couple of my games, people regularly hitting level cap, like not every time, by the way, but just like you hit a big haul, and sometimes there's a thief who's slightly under leveled, and they're like, yeah, you've hit level cap because you know. So yeah, it is an interesting thing because you do see how it operates for good or for bad, and I think it's benign, but like as a mechanic, eye level capping.
It's like encumbrance. I remember all the obviously I think it was maybe EOTB who observed that certain discussions or topics, they're just uh, whenever somebody is new, you do talk about it, right? So it's
Mm,
almost like sort of uh, you're maybe you're around, it's like sort of like a pool or like a
mm,
circular river where certain topics they sort of like they float up again, and then they're discussed briefly, and then they're pushed down again,
yeah.
and they're solved again. And encumbrance is one of those things where it's um, tracking it, doing it every single day, or putting too much attention
Mm,
on it is boring and kind of annoying, but it's a sort of it's a fence essentially. It's
mm,
like something
yeah.
that is there in the background to sort of like uh, put like breaks and sort of indicate a sort of general direction of like what can or cannot happen. It doesn't necessarily mean that this is supposed to be like an encumbrance pixel bitching game. It's
Mm.
just like there to prevent egregious abuse, and I guess like limits to XP are kind of like
Well,
that
I
as
was going to
well.
say, isn't it a bit like there's? It's one thing is there are plenty of real laws and regulations which serve in similar ways, like lots of things to do with the police can flag you down for certain things on your car that are unsafe. But of course, they're not going around necessarily looking for that. And most of the time, if there's something marginal, it's the same for like we have an MOT system where your car has to pass a safety test each year. Like, you find a good mechanic will know how to be flexible on that in a way that, the whole point is it's there as a fence, not as a not as a corset. It's not there to strangle, but there to just set up kind of barriers that make sure the game can function. And I think, XP caps, training time, and training costs, and
Yeah, it
What was
all
the
gives you
example?
kind of like an
Increments. Yeah.
idea of like
Yeah.
what would be a reasonable speed of progression. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, all of these things are they are coordinate as well. I know we've said this before, and this isn't directly related to what Gabor's work, but they are all coordinate. You don't go like, oh yeah, I think only 2 of these are good and the other 2 are bad. Maybe that's true, but you have to understand how they are all coordinate to create a particular experience. You know that you can still change it, but they're all related. So when you think
Oh
about
yeah.
how encumbrance and light and the adventuring day and exhaustion and random encounters and if you're on a wilderness trek, rations and blah 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 blah, and the camp you then have to maintain because you have to have people guarding the horses. Like all these things coordinate, and if you start saying, well, I just don't like this, that's fine, but like you may well lose the whole effect. And and that, so I think understanding how those all work is important. But yeah, back to whimsy. I think the occasional bit of whimsy in the world is fun, and I say, it's not as if you don't get that in certainly in Fafnir and the Grey Mouser, certainly in lots of other Appendix N sources. If you go and look at,
Can we take a spotlight on encounter number 6, which is I think
the Door of Faces,
sort
a
of
massive iron
Gaborian.
door.
He has a sort of a fondness for stone faces and heads.
Yeah.
I've also noticed there's sort of a recurring theme in his.
Well, every Hungarian is
game.
actually raised by their parents and by a stone head, which I think is why this is.
By a stone head, huh?
Yeah.
All right.
That's true.
Okay, that sounds
Yeah.
plausible. I believe it. Anyway, the Door of Faces.
Unless we're corrected, it's probably true.
It's true. You heard it on the internet, folks. Let's go.
Yeah. So yeah, the Door of Faces, remains of an extinguished campfire. A massive iron door decorated with 3 grotesque faces blocks further passage. They are angry, sleepy, and jolly. The bees can go in and out.
That's
and
cool. If you encounter like that's cool. If you I don't know if you've had that often, but when you're running a game and then the characters, they run into a door that gives them pause. They're like, oh shit, should we go through this? Maybe do the side passage first, right? Like the kind of stuff that gives them pause. I think this is definitely one of them.
Yeah. I was gonna say, so this is one of the cave entrances. So there are 3 cave entrances, and encounter 6 is one of them. So is number 1, which we briefly flicked over, which is there is a font. So yeah, this is of course this kind of multiple cave entrance. Look at B1, look at B2, and these early D&D adventures which have this idea of there are many entrances into the dungeon. The mega dungeons, Castle Greyhawk, even on the same level there might be multiple entrances, let alone as you start to go, there's now an entrance level 3 in the hill, that kind of thing. So I think the idea of multiple ways in and multiple ways you can try to solve a problem, classic old school method, idea. But yeah, there is the angry face, sets your face on fire. If you're careful with the sleepy face, it opens the door, but if you turn it rashly, it could cut off your fingers. And
is that too cryptic, or is that one where you go like, oh, well, because there's an element of random chance in here as well, of course, right? Oh, which face do I touch? But then, somebody would have to say, especially, okay, but I do it carefully, right? Okay, all right, okay,
yeah. And you got a criticism there can be is that players have to learn a secret code to make the DM not kill them. There can be a criticism for that kind of puzzle.
Don't you? Yeah, well, my only thing is that don't you eventually, unless you would occasionally have situations where from context people can infer that they actually should not be cautious, then you would eventually default to a point where you would say, listen, I'm going to do all my exploration cautiously. All right, I cautiously open the door. I cautiously, right?
Yeah,
like that.
and of course that's kind of fine in one way, because as long as it's not something which starts breaking, essentially, this is the thing about room traps. Room traps we've talked about before when we talked about dungeon design. The reason you have obvious room traps, like you look down the corridor in the ancient temple, and there are circular holes. There are 5 circular holes in the stones on each side. Do I look ahead? Does it look like there could be any pressure plates or like anything? It could be. What do you do? Now the players either take the risk of the javelins or they choose to take the risk of the encounter by doing extra preparation, and that's fine. But that's something where you're setting up. I don't know, I'm being very gamist here, but you're setting up a decision for the players, and maybe the criticism of someone might make here, as what you're implying is this a bit too nomic? Is it an obvious gamist choice, or is it too difficult and you're likely to have a bad thing happen to you whatever you do? And is that bad? Is it bad to have bad things happen? I don't know. What do you think? What's your view?
Geez, I just think in this case, I think it's fine. It's definitely not unheard of in other adventures as well, where you would just have the caveat unless the players take extreme care. Something if it's fragile, it'll break, right? So I think it's fine. I do.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, especially with exploration, I feel like eventually you would end up in a state where an experienced party is almost always going to say like, okay, if you're in a location, it's a static trap, then they almost always will specify that they're being careful and
Mm-hmm.
taking adequate precautions. So it's almost like um, a thing, a problem that once you solve it, it's no longer an issue.
Mm-hmm.
As a player, but that's actually fine. If you start to learn the game of D&D and then you go like, oh shit, I should exercise some caution. You sort of learn to recognize scenarios where
Yeah.
you have to alter the instructions that you give the DM. I think that's okay if you don't
Yeah.
pixel bitch too much.
Yeah. I think that's the
Y-
tension. That's the tension, isn't it?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, and yeah, and to some degree, it can also be that it's fine. Here's a different thing, which some would disagree with, but it's also probably fine to have more tutelary and unpleasant things happen when people are learning the game. I don't mean you should just always be killing new players. What I mean is when they're learning a game, you say, look, what kind of decisions you make. If your players are often more likely to be stupid, and so having a quick, sharp shock to be like, no, don't be stupid, like play the game seriously and sensibly. That's a useful thing that can happen in the game, not via you as the DM deciding to do extra nasty stuff, but just there are things that happen in the game if you're stupid. And this is an example where that could happen. It's one thing, by the way, is that for Aurelion, there is no adventure, I think, lower than second level. Not in this book anyway, and I don't think, because I have all the stuff up to Echoes 8, and I have Pearladon Manor. I'm not sure. Again, Gab will may be able to correct me, but this is something where I think they did some other stuff at very low level, and then they were second level, and then they started doing other adventures, from what I remember Gabor saying. But
It's
obviously,
quite possible.
yeah.
It may also be the case that I seem to recall this may be from Fomalhaut proper, or maybe just like the games we've had. But um, I do recall it came up in the CAG Discord server as well. This idea that the very early levels of D&D are kind of like tutorial levels, and in general you let people start a little bit higher, so like third level, to give them a cushion once they're kind of experienced, and once they're if you all have experienced players that have played before, then that sort of stuff can be fine. So that may
There will be
also
an exam, Liam.
be the
There
case.
will be an exam.
Yeah.
But no, it's I go back and forth on that. By the way, we've talked. I think we've talked about this too. I think the low level stuff in AD&D can be fun. I don't think they're like, oh well, I've finally grown past playing first level AD&D. I'll never do that again. I think it can be fun, but it's something where people are, and the OSR is very tempted to get stuck in infancy rather than enjoying a whole journey. And the fact that so much of the kind of real core gameplay is sort of, classically 3rd to 7th level. We've talked about this before, like 3rd to 7th level is where so much of the kind of core gameplay of D&D is. And the fact that so many people are like, oh yeah, we just play 1st and 2nd level functionally, is a shame, because it means they never actually played the game as a whole.
Yeah, and it's more like a richer, more complex form. And also, again, of course, if as characters mature, they, you kind of you do build up sort of like a story in the sense that like there's stuff that you've done,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
You get
Yeah.
actual NPCs that you know of that you've actually met, right? Not that
Yeah. Yeah.
some static backstory that you have to adhere to, but like
Oh
no,
no,
you've actually
exactly.
done things in the game, and you know
Yeah.
that you
And
kind
the
of build it
things
up.
that are
It's more
happening are
exciting.
earned. Like in
Yeah,
my open
exactly.
table game, the company has just for helping restore the Dwarven Kingdom of Ilafan and having negotiated a new part for the Wild Elves to kind of be at least friendly neighbours, if not strictly allies. They had to go to Fairy actually to do that, to kind of do something for the Elf King. But they've been given a ruined keep on a tract of land. And you're like, that's something where that's not the start of the campaign. That's something that's happened years into a campaign where they finally earned the start of their domain. And they're like, yeah, we want to go and do this. This is exciting. This is something, really. Or again, yeah, people when NPCs recur and stuff, I think that matters more. There is a great Ben Lawrence post memorializing a PC who died and talking about all his accomplishments in the game. And for me, I'm like, no, this is the backstory. The backstory is what happens at the end of the game. You look back and your character was this guy.
Oh
And
yeah,
that's so much more
like an
worthwhile. That's
honor
great
roll, yeah,
backstory. Yeah.
or a eulogy, yeah.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, I don't remember the name of the guy. He was a knight. It was really actually it's also quite touching because you're like, this is both well written and it's honoring a player and the story of something that's happened in the game.
Yeah, that's fun.
Yeah, Gon Barleycorn says Gabor did write a first level adventure in Cassadia, the Kingdom of South of Rurion. Seems like it was a dying in a murderous hole kind of adventure.
That's those are
Yeah.
the good ones.
I was flicking to the next one just because it continues on the Beekeeper's lair and it's got some fun treasure. So it's got 6 crystalline cores of hardened honeycomb, which remember we're timesing by 5 for strict gold for XP. So they're 500 gold each. That's pretty good. 3,000
No,
gold.
they're worth only 100
Yeah.
GP, but they're worth 500 XP. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. As in terms of
Oh
by
yeah.
the assumptions, you need to be able to multiply it. So yeah. In the corners, letting corpses. So he is like preserving people for some reason with red root, and he also has some cool magic stuff, polymorphic honey, a speaking
This is
piece of amber that doesn't have any.
some
Yeah,
disturbing
yeah.
human sacrifice, bee themed human sacrifice
Yeah.
rituals. Some
Yeah.
fucked up druid guy, yeah.
Yeah.
A jar of polymorphic honey. Yeah, this is all great stuff. This is
We need
all
to send this to all,
artisanal boutique style OSR treasure. That's
yeah, exactly. No, that's one thing, and some of it is not game relevant. By that, I mean a piece of amber preserving the echoes of long dead druids, speaking about the glory of the undisturbed wilderness. That's there because for vibes, and vibes are not unimportant. Otherwise, this could just be room 8, treasure 7, monster D. Like you would just like vibes matter because they help us kind of get what's feel and engage with the imaginative world. As and that's what I think.
yeah, you should. Yeah, it's definitely. I think it is, a strength. At a certain level, it's a strength in any case, but it's also, you know, eh, you have to look at like what is your adventure trying to do. I guess like what are its strengths. If you're going for something that's very, um, very gameplay oriented, like say, I don't know if you've ever played it, like Labyrinth of Madness, right? High level Monte Cook adventure, uh, kind of like intricate sort of proto third edition. So you have lots of like they're essentially just very complex set piece encounters and asshole traps and that sort of stuff. And this is really something that's meant to and a lot of like concealed um, caveats and traps and nasty secrets and conditions just lying in wait. And this is something that you're that is meant to really test the limits of like high level characters. Um, there and actually there the amount of like the background and the atmosphere is actually it feels a little bit generic in a way that third edition adventures often felt, right? But you might argue that it's not as much of a problem there because uh, it, you're almost like you're almost too focused on the technical stuff, and you know that that's going to be such a big part of the game that maybe it's not so bad. But for especially like low level adventures, you're picking like a sort of off key premise, and it's very clearly sort of like, okay, no, we're not just going to play a game. You have all these gameplay elements, but yeah, no, the atmosphere is a really big part of that. And you put a lot of attention to it, then yeah, of course. So I think that,
Yeah.
and especially for low level games, it seems easier. It seems easier uh, to evoke that, maybe because it's a little bit more plausible, or because people can't like fly and have all these magic superpowers. I think it's maybe a bit easier to
Yeah.
sort of channel
To
that
put
boutique
value
artisanal
onto
OSR style.
curiosities. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and also it does allow sometimes players will be like, will come up with fun ideas to do with that. They're like, actually, we could do something with this. Not necessarily this example, but yeah. Bee repellent, that's pretty useful because bees are a wandering monster. So if you can get
No.
here and the beekeeper is not here, then you can get 3,000 XP of treasure, and you can get stuff to get rid of one of the random encounters, and you can get polymorph, like a polymorph potion, and you
But
can
then
get a fun
again,
little thing.
right, and then I kind of think like, what was I critical about in uh that Nave adventure that we did? What is it?
Willoughby
With the
Hall,
giant
Waking Willoughby
goose
Hall. Yeah,
waking in
yeah, yeah.
Willoughby Hall. Then I probably should I go here like, oh, we don't know how long the incense will burn. Like, you can figure something out, of course. Like, it will be a couple of
Yeah, I
turns,
know. I think it's
right?
fair.
Yeah,
I think
yeah. It probably
Gabor
doesn't
is
matter that
big enough
much.
and ugly enough to take it, isn't he? Like, I think the point is that, of course,
Yeah,
one thing one thing I'd praise about Gabor's works, and I say this having run some and having read plenty, is that mostly this stuff is actually pretty clear, and he knows what's game relevant. So that's good.
yeah, but it would also
But
be
of
something
course,
where.
there are
Oh,
cases
go
where
ahead.
he doesn't detail it, as here. So I was just agreeing. I think in this case, of course, it'd be helpful. I just assume
No,
an incense stick gets rid of an encounter.
I think here it's also going to be like, who is the audience, right? I feel
Yeah.
probably introductory adventure, you'd have to be, or if an axe adventure, yeah,
Mm.
you've got to be pretty precise. But then you go like, okay, listen, they're gonna aim for more whatever experience demographic. You can figure this out. Whatever,
Yeah.
fuck it. Here you go. It's a repellent. Bam. Moving
Yeah.
on. What's the range of the bee repellent? Probably about 10 feet. 20 feet radius
Yeah.
seems to be too much. Maybe 5 feet if we're being ungenerous. I think
Yeah,
that
yeah.
works too.
I think you just say
Right.
it's probably enough that if you're burning it and you're next to it, the bees don't attack you. That's what I
Yeah,
mean. You're like that's
exactly.
the ruling,
Yeah.
and then that's the end of the encounter. Whatever. I quite like, by the way, and this is a gameplay thing I like, which is room 10. It has a statue. There's not much going on there, but it's just, oh, that's interesting.
Room 10 is
It
great.
begins babbling and moves to attack if molested. So it has this weird monster, which is kind of weird. You're a bit like, okay. But then there's a cruel way. A concealed cruel way is found behind the figure. But yeah, you don't have to molest it to go behind the figure, I guess. But you have to be careful. They're not like, oh, can we move it? Do we need to do something? But what I like is that there's a bunch of rubbish, and there's broken clay pots, some kind of old tarry substance, and a discarded piece of bronze hammered into a fish. Now, this is such a great thing. One, sometimes players pick random stuff up, but two, how detect magic is such a good spell. Just genuinely
Yeah.
such a good spell.
Well,
Like,
my
it's
party
not a
has
great. Sorry, go for it.
I agree with that, but like, yeah, my party has started adopting, and you notice this if you play very often, especially if they delve often, they do start to develop like routines, right? So at some point, they just one of them will have a detect magic spell prepared, but then they save up, like they grab all the stuff that they can, if they're like, maybe this is valuable. Geez, I don't know. You know what? We'll bring it, and you throw it into a big pile at the end, and you cast detect magic on all of it,
Yeah,
right? That's
yeah,
that becomes
yeah.
the go-to sort of
No,
like
indeed.
move.
I'd say detect magic is not an amazing spell for your first level caster to use, especially for a magic user, as his one slot. But when you've got third, fourth, this is for second, fourth. You've got third and fourth level guys. Actually, a detect magic can be really useful for picking up a magic trap, or for trying to work out if there's magic in amongst some other stuff. I also run that PCs get a 0th level spell. Wizards get cantrip, and priests get orison. And orison has a sense magic in a particular area, and so it's not as precise, but it's like, is there magic somewhere here? And yeah, so it's something where players can have more options for trying to work stuff out. But I like it because it's something where you're like, this rewards persistence, and it's not noodling like in G2, where we're like, oh yeah, he's warning you shouldn't waste time in this room, and if you do, you'll find 10 copper or whatever. It is more like,
but this
you
idea of like
yeah.
having treasure that's kind of like unassuming or a little bit obscure to figure out, because even if you have the I think in this case too, it's like it's just enough. It's you might go like, oh, what the fuck is that? Never mind. A brass fish, not for me, right? But maybe you'll bring it along, and then if you detect it's magical, then you're like, okay, we'll put it on a stick. Let's see, because we don't know. Is there a command word inscribed somewhere? No. Okay. Would it fit on a handle? Yeah, sure. Says the DM. Right? You're supposed to like go like back and forth, ask questions.
Oh yeah.
And then eventually when you do then get it, and it turns out to be like a magic weapon, it's nice.
Yeah, I was going to say it's something where if you're a second level party on this one and you come out at third or whatever, I guess you are not super likely to go and necessarily pay for identifying a city.
If it's using advanced rules, you won't be able to. That's really something that the DM has to like house rule in, because
the DM can determine level.
Within 24 hours usually.
Yeah,
even less.
I mean they can determine that it is enchanted. Is the point? So
yeah,
in terms of determining level points of information, one of those could be it is enchanted with levels, but it would be an additional piece of information to find out more about that. So what I mean is it's something it could still be worthwhile, but it's something which for a low level party isn't very appealing. It's time consuming, financially consuming, and you might not get very much information. So yeah, you're more likely to experiment at that level, aren't you? You're more likely to be like, I wonder what happens if I do this. And I do, I've definitely, players many times be like, I mess around with this small glowing crystal and see what it does. If I do, that's a classic downtime thing when you're kind of winding down from an adventure and you're spending 20 minutes just messing around to be like, okay, can people roll their training? Can people do this? And someone's like, can I do this with this magic item? I think that's a part of the payoff, part of the sense of enjoying your victory as you start mucking about with the magic stuff.
Also, and I wanted to give a little another nice detail. Like if you look at like say 12, like empty burial chamber. So again, it's also it's a certain way of words, right? With these, I think Gabor has a good feel for like all of these sort of archaic objects that are introduced into the description. Again, sarcophagi, and we have niches filled with ancient pottery, and again, tallows and wicks and all that stuff. It's definitely a vibe, but also importantly, here you see a broken shield with the mark of a pierced, bleeding heart lying in a corner. Again, it's also an object that's been detailed, right? But not every detailed object is significant, right? So it's not. You don't give the game away necessarily, where everything that is not random gold pieces is everything is customized immediately magical or special, which is a way to make it like really boring. And here the rooms are populated with enough sort of naturalistic detail that you can easily slip those sorts of like intriguing objects in between. And again, observant players will be able to figure something out.
Yeah, I know. I agree. And I mean, there's other examples you actually have. If you compare 9 and 14, you have 2 food-based adventure experiences. One is there are mushrooms and there are vines with raspberries. The mushrooms are infected with stalks of dry, thin fungus, corrupting their flesh, but it's harmless to humans. So but the players might be like, oh well, I wonder what's going on with these fungi. Oh no, there's something weird on them. Maybe that's bad. Oh well, there's raspberries. Maybe they're enchanted. The classic. And then you find a discarded pickaxe, which guides you into 11. Then you go to 14, and 14 has a bunch of magical pea pods. Which you've got to save versus fellow. You have to like obtain them all. There are also 2 statues. They've had their heads smashed in, which you can smash them open more to get 230 electrum each, so 125.
But this is some insane, I guess, sort of burial rite that's implied here too, where maybe the original culture has
Mm.
they found these magic animals and that they interred them in clay statues.
Yeah.
Um, but again, yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
and to sort of like, it's the decayed baskets filled with
Mm.
gold, kind of like you almost imply like maybe you give them a gift to send them off to the afterlife. But it's like that's a great little detail. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, what the fuck is going
And
on here? It's
there's
great.
constantly implied danger, even where there's not danger. So you've got to players got to make judgments about what is dangerous and what isn't.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, like weird statues of magical animals, but they're a bit smashed. Or there's pea pods, but they're tasty. Oh no, I've got to save this. But oh, are the raspberries cursed? This is minor and in a way silly. Like ultimately, the game is not about determining between two types of relatively useless magical food or non-magical food. But it's again about
How
the
many
sense
how
of
many
yeah,
turns how many turns do you have to spend
yeah.
picking all the before you have all the pods? What do you do?
Hey, it's a good
It's
question.
fine. No, it's fine.
It's a good question. It's one you can be determined, but of course, that's the point. Is of course it's an expenditure of time in that room if you do that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, right.
and the
That's the
same with,
idea. Enough
but
enough
if
to
you go
roll a
in,
random encounter check for
yeah,
sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's presumably got to be the implication. But yeah, whereas in room 10, if you go into the crawl way, you get a spear +2. So
There you
you
go.
got uh, and you're going to accept that sometimes the stuff doesn't work out for you. You do something that doesn't work out. Probably a brass fish is more likely to be good than pea pods, so you should make your judgment accordingly.
I don't know. You sometimes, yeah, I kind of like it that in D&D sometimes you should actually reward people for trying the weird vegetation. If
Yeah, yeah.
if unless it's kind of like you give a signal, right, where they should be able to tell. But maybe
Hmm.
if you're getting tricksy, then you'll have given an anti signal earlier on. Like if you
Mm.
let's say normally there's some great looking apples in a place where maybe you'd expect great looking apples, then it's fine. But maybe in the beginning of the dungeon you've made it clear that like, oh, don't trust your eyes, don't take any gifts, all that
Mm.
glimmers is not gold. And then you offer nice looking objects, or you offer them in some location where they're totally incongruous, like amid like a field of corpses or whatever. Then
Yeah,
yeah, you can infer from context, oh, it's actually probably bad. Like I kind of like that sort of that interplay. So yeah, of course.
yeah. I was going to say, shall I? I'll flick onto a different page of this, and we can always look at some of the other adventures and stuff as well. But we'll look at a bit more of
We're probably
the
not going to reach
singing
all of them, since
caverns. No,
I
no,
won't be able
no.
to like won't be able to last much longer today.
We've got
But
yeah.
I'm
What, another
definitely up
3 hours?
for
Then we'll run another 3 hours, 4 hours, 3 hours.
4. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
No, no, no. I think we can definitely get through the cavern of the beekeeper. Oh, beware the
yeah,
beekeeper. Sorry, which is
yeah.
a double. It's a bee pun.
Beware the
I
beekeepers.
did have the ambition to compare this one with the LOTFP
Hmm.
adventure, which was also definitely bee themed adventure. Kind of
I
like
don't want
do
to know. I almost don't want to know about an LOTFP bee themed
nobody
adventure.
gets and listen, nobody has sex with the bees. Okay, it's just called
How
beware.
doesn't sound
And
like it's an LOTFP, yeah.
it's it's
Adventure then.
it's a charming first to fourth level adventure that has like almost 50 4 hit dice save for death bee were bee monsters in it. It rules.
um, I was going to say both Liam and Matthew, by the way, will take the corpse apples / magic beans.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Liam, by the way, you probably actually already follow his channel. You're probably already subbed. But Liam does review Forgotten Realms fiction. He is a guy who actually, because Forgotten Realms fiction, like Star Wars fiction, is one of those things where you're like, it is like second edition setting products. It is like a garbage pile which has gems and jewels in it. So
Most
yeah,
people, they go to a gem mine to get gems, but some people, they go to a sewer, right? Yeah, that's
yeah,
fine. I
yeah,
understand.
yeah.
No, funny story. So I think it's almost probably I'm a huge bibliophile, right? I have
Mm.
a ton of books, and I mean, I think I might almost have 1,000 now. Like it's nuts. But the prettiest book I own, it's not the whatever the centennial the Complete Howard or something like that, or the Complete Lioness, which are really pretty books. It's not an RPG
Mm.
book either. The Virginia Disastrum with its like gold lettering. No, it's it has sort of like a white. Uh, it's almost like a leather bound cover, and there's just this
Mm.
this beautiful sort of magical Lord of the Rings like symbol on it, and it's the Complete Elminster. That's the
Mm.
nicest book that I own, and I bought that for like probably $5 at some
Mm.
sort of book fair. I tried reading it. I got 2 pages in. I was like, this is awful. It's totally unreadable. But I just
No,
it just strikes me that the
Liam,
production value of it is absolute
recommend in the
crap.
chat. Recommend a couple of Forgotten Realms books or like trilogies or
I
whatever for
I've
people.
tried
I know
them. I'm not. You're not going to convince me. I think I read all the. I think there was this
you
original
like some of the
trilogy.
you like some of the Drizzt. You literally said you enjoy some of the Drizzt books.
I They were okay. I read some of them. It was like this was when I just got started, but it's just that as soon as I
Mm.
discovered like real. This was before I even,
Yeah,
I'd never read Sword and Sorcery before. So,
yeah,
well, maybe I'd read Elric. I think I'd read Elric, right?
yeah,
Um, you read the Drizzt novels, but then you go to actual, you read David
mm,
Gerald, or you get into like Fritz Lieber, and then it's like, okay, yeah, I'm not gonna try that shit again, right? I think it had its time and place, and there's definitely a correlation to be made that when Sword and Sorcery was virtually extinct, but these Forgotten Realms novels did pretty well because I think they sort of fulfilled kind of like a
mm.
niche. Kemp's Erevis Kale, I'll was if I see it in like a secondhand bookstore, and I'm like, okay, I'll need,
And Matthew
I'll
says the
one
Weiss and
more
Hickman
won't
Dragon
kill me.
Monster.
Okay, here we go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Weiss and Hickman. To be fair, people have said that. I think that's a funny thing. I have heard a few people like, "Oh yeah, I enjoyed reading the Dragonlance novels. It's just that they were, eventually made for completely worthless modules." Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
some people were like, as far as and these are essentially just it's epic. If you want to be ungenerous, you say they're Lord of the Rings clones, and if you want to be generous, you say this is just epic fantasy. But I've heard that, like, especially the original trilogy for epic fantasy, it's like it's not bad.
yeah.
But
I enjoyed the Finder Stone trilogy by Kate Novak and Jeff Grubb. I think that was actually quite good.
I think I got there was the whole Drow
Mm-hmm.
sextology or whatever. I think I read
Yeah,
all of those. I ended up selling them to just to make room. Um,
yeah, yeah,
yeah, I don't know. It's somehow generic fantasy is yeah. I find it even harder to get into that.
yeah. I was gonna say, I
Azure
think that
Bonds,
there
I've
was
read that one too. Yeah.
that's part of Finder Stone trilogy. I like the Azure Bonds is the first one. They're pretty. There's some fun ideas in that, and they're executed fairly well. It's
Is
yeah.
Azure Bonds, is that one of the original ones with like where they have to find some sort of coral crown and ball returns, or is that, am I thinking of a different one?
That's a different thing.
With
Azure
Khazgaroth
Bond,
as well.
yeah.
I read that one.
Elaine Cunningham. What Weiss and Hickman in Deathgate. That's another wreck.
Oh
And
dear.
Matty says some of the verse is not terrible in Weiss and Hickman. But yes, so Beekeeper, Rothold's Roughnecks. So here we're we're a bit deeper into the dungeon here, aren't we?
We're
Yeah,
running into the different factions, and I guess it's
yeah,
yeah, it's like a more whimsical, atmospheric.
yeah.
I won't say version of B2 because that comparison gets made a lot.
Mm.
Uh, but it's kind of like a, what is it? Maybe not a monster hotel, but like similar to that, where you just have this cave complex, and it's inhabited by different populations that sort of live in uh, an uneasy companionship with occasional skirmishing and skullduggery, but mostly they're content to leave each other well enough alone.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, room 20, for instance, only a few rooms away, has bombardier beetles, and room 23 next door is bandits who go fishing. Room
There's
21, there's a
one
mummy.
more. I detected like an almost unforgivable pun.
Yeah.
So there's more than one resemblance with Beware as well here. I see here metal arm wearing an iron gauntlet.
Yeah.
Ooh, and you have to beat it at
The
arm
gauntlets
wrestling.
of Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Schwarzenegger. That's ooh.
He who can beat it in 3 rounds of arm wrestling will make it fall and turn into the gauntlets of it. So I mean that's tough, isn't it? 1d4 plus 1 damage versus 1800 gauntlets. Tiny blind white newts, but they're harmless.
Is it
there is
the iron
there is a
gauntlet
mummy, by the
will
way.
turn into 2 gauntlets? I think that's okay. That's okay. I can maybe I can imagine that in my head. I can see that shape.
Yeah. There is I was going to say there is a room nearby with a mummy in it, which is in a hollow sarcophagus, and it has a chance to break out. You might flee. It has like good treasure, like it has 840 in gold treasure, like golden jewelry, and a magic item bag of wins. So yeah, again, that's a lot of that's over 4,000 XP in terms of house rules. But yeah, that's tough. A mummy for your 3rd level party, you're probably just going to run away, aren't you? I guess it depends. If you can get any kind of jump on it and throw lots of fire at it, then great.
Well, we ran into this with while playing. I think it was BX Black Racer's module during Cauldron. That mummies are you have that fear effect, right? That's kind of like that's the problem if you're a low level party. That's actually what probably will get you, because it'll is the potential to disable a large part of your party. But if it doesn't, they're mostly just very tough. They get reduced damage from everything. Their damage output itself isn't that high. And the mummy rod is more something that it really interferes with your sort of like your long-term ability to keep exploring, right? Because I think it's while you're infected with mummy rod, I don't think you can be healed magically, if I recall that detail correctly. And it's kind of really annoying to remove, almost certainly necessitating sort of like clerical intervention. So a mummy is actually perfect to place halfway through the dungeon, or like, right, it's not a good boss monster because it doesn't really have the the damage output.
It doesn't have nor action economy,
right? Exactly.
Yeah,
but it's very tough, and it can cripple you. So it's that kind of like it's a good guardian monster to sort of put somewhere where if it's not evaded, it's actually kind of a hassle and exacts quite a toll.
I was going to say, compared to some leveled undead, I use the term. Yeah, Liam says he'd just run away. Some leveled undead, inverted commas, the mummy is more innocuous than some of them because it's physical, because you can just set it on fire, because it will kill some of your guys 1d12 plus rot, but it's not it's not something that's doing multiple attacks.
It seems harsh, right? But if you compare it to like an owlbear or something,
it's doing 6 or 7 damage. So yes, your 2nd level party, it could take someone down.
Oh yeah,
but it's unlikely to kill many people in one shot. The rot is a problem, and it has 36
also,
that's 36 hit points. 36 hit points is a lot of hit points.
And it'll take I think half damage from a lot of effects.
Yeah,
so that's
right.
That's all. That's all a problem. Yeah.
Of course, it does have an Achilles heel. So yeah. But yeah, Rothel's Roughnecks. There's a bunch of bandits here, including an evil cleric who pretends to be good. He's a cleric of Barzog, but he pretends to be a cleric of Filongar. Rothold himself has a longsword +1 and an amulet versus detection. There is quite a lot of non-monetary treasure. Yeah. Sorry, what was that?
Well, the amulet of protection versus detection is the classic DM. The arms race where the players have access to detect evil. If they have a paladin in the party who will of course scan everybody and detect their alignment. So then that.
But of course, that's here. It is not meant to be a hoser on the players. Here, I think it's not, because it's actually because Rothold is a I guess it's that maybe Rothold and Salaric, they pay their dues to Sir Hugo. They're locked and bolted. I guess you could end up there thinking there's bandits around and just deciding to cast detect evil on them. But it depends. Like, I guess, why are you here and how likely are you to cast detect evil on them? Obviously, Salaric is similarly. He disguises himself as good using
Yeah, they just all.
yeah.
Yeah, it may just be like a detail, like for similitude,
Yeah.
but it's kind of
I like it. I think it's
it kind of
fun.
ties it.
Actually,
It's like a sort of a Robin Hood, like a subversive
yeah,
Robin Hood. It's like,
yeah.
oh, like on a jovial band of
I
guys.
did write an
Like,
adventure. I think I ran it. I play tested, ran it once for someone's birthday in 2018 or something. I think that was it. 2018.
they have a deal
And
with Sir Hugo. I see. Okay.
yeah, indeed. Which of course is interesting as a detail about your potential. The guy who's hosting you for the start of the campaign, right? Is that this guy might be like, yeah, he's a little bit ruthless. A
I
little
think
bit playing
here,
both sides.
how they respond to intrusion
Mm.
may be covered in reaction rolls if we go up.
Mm.
Uh,
Go up to where?
well, because that's the one thing I noticed is like it doesn't really. We know why they're here.
Reaction
We
rolls,
even know
recruitment,
that but like
adventure.
how they
This is
respond to like
yeah,
how they would respond
yeah,
to intrusion isn't really covered. But I think
yeah.
if you
Back
go
at the random
up to random
encounters.
encounters,
Yeah,
yes,
it does mention about that. Yeah,
then
I was saying, yeah,
it
I
covers
did
like how
once write.
orcs
I
or
did
how
once write
bandits would
an
respond.
evil Robin Hood adventure, which I've run once, which was quite fun.
Right.
8. 6. Yep. So reaction rolls are crucial in this adventure, as the inhabitants of the cavern are used to traffic, often prefer confrontation. This is Gabor being, in a perfectly good way, OSRE. Generally, as it's him attempting to teach that principle of not that combat is a failure state, which is a misleading thing to say, but rather that not everything is combat. And yeah, they may parley with the company on a good roll, while giant rats, bees, and swarms of the beekeeper may just go their own way. Living statues always attack. So yeah. Now,
Well,
I guess this doesn't necessarily apply to the room itself, but I think the logic applies because it says reaction rolls are important in this adventure.
yeah, you're kind of
Yeah,
just
yeah,
emphasizing like, okay, listen, this is not the assumption here is that you're not going to have everything attack automatically, but
yeah,
rather it's quite possible that somebody will be like friendly or inclined to talk and all that
yeah.
stuff.
Also, because there's a door, it's locked and bolted. The doors are locked and bolted, so you're not going to get in easily anyway, are you? So it depends. Are you here to attack or are you here to trade? Because if you're here to trade or to deal, or maybe you're sneaking in because you do have a quest to go after some bandits, you're going to have to work out the way to get in. Like, there is a intelligence in planning the encounter that I think is good. By encounter I mean whatever happens.
That's right.
Yeah. Rotho is an archer, 3+2. He's got custom classes, Prince. A custom
Well,
class.
where are these custom classes described? I saw an Amazon
Yeah.
later on, even. An Amazon, I guess, would still be in the monster manual. It would just be a type of human
I
being we can
think
infer from
the
that.
Amazon Gabor or whoever. There was, I think, one version of the Amazon in Dragon magazine, wasn't there? And I know there have been various in
I've seen the Archer show
zines.
up in Beholder Mag, among
Yeah.
other places, and I'm sure people made Archer classes all the time. They
Yeah.
never quite
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, we
landed.
talked about this when you and I recently on Discord, we with others were discussing like how weapon spec works and stuff.
Right.
And we've had a few rounds of the conversation, but how some of the ways it worked. But there is a thing that the Archer is a fighter kit, which is classically for like the more interestingly designed 2E kits. It basically doesn't do anything except one thing. In like it kind of limits you in some areas, but makes you good in others. So it's a rare one where you are, yeah. You get added rate of fire, for instance, but yeah, special weapon specialization also. If you specialize in a bow, you get the point blank range thing, which, if you remember, Adrian and I were talking about. So yeah, I think it's it's an idea that's been around there, and it's maybe it's not heresy, but certainly it's impure. It's it's homebrewed.
Yeah. Ooh, I don't like. I think the reason the Archer class, for whatever or whatever its source may be, but that it never caught on was that this is a bit too. What's the best way to say it? I think it's too narrowly focused, right? You already have you have a ranger class, but the ranger has all this other crap going on, right? You get some magic spells, you can
Yeah,
track people, improve surprise, that sort of stuff. And
yeah,
just having a specialist archer is uh is maybe
yeah,
too narrow a thing where after
yeah.
5
I was going to
levels
say, I
you
know
get sick
my
of saying I shoot people with arrows.
Yeah, I think I've got a couple. I've had a couple of people play archers, and one Beej who plays in the Spelljammer game, which is on
Right.
this channel. Beej basically doesn't like his archer character, other than he finds him useful for some adventures. So he's like, he'll be useful for this adventure, but I don't like the character. But he's just useful for this.
Well,
And
what
I
do you
think
do, Beach?
yeah,
I fire
yeah, yeah,
arrows.
yeah, pretty much,
Yeah,
yeah.
right.
I
Like,
think that is his
what does the
complaint. I
archer
think that is his
do? Oh, I
complaint. Yeah,
wonder.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. He's got rate. Well, basically, it's because you're like, oh, he's got rate of fire 3, and because he's specialized anyway, he gets a plus Thaco, and he's got point blank range. You know, oh,
Oh
that's
my,
really good. But
yeah,
it is also, I think Arun is an elf, so he already has the longbow. You are like, you know,
yeah. Of
it's not
course.
cheesy. It's not cheesy in an exaggerated way. I'm not saying like, oh, it's broken. Be like, no, you're really good at this one thing. But as you say, that's the only thing you're good at.
And then you go,
There's no edge.
Yes, champion, if you fulfill this quest, you shall receive a magic weapon. And the archer goes, is it a bow? And he said, and the spirit says no. And he goes, no. And you immediately
Yeah.
loses interest, right?
Yeah.
I don't
It's
know.
obviously a character that is acceptable in stable play. That's one thing, is having
Yeah.
characters who are just get, because imagine a campaign where you only have one character, and you're like, I've realized 3 levels in that my character is boring.
I
and
remember
yeah.
there was a class like that in 3E as well. It was called the healer. It was literally called
Mm,
the healer, and it's just
mm,
what if you could have a cleric and you just strip out really most of all the offensive spells are essentially gone. Most of the protective magic is
mm.
gone, but you have um not only do you have more more spell slots for healing, but also like extra like spell like abilities to do even more healing. And I was just like, this is, yeah, it has to be like the most boring fucking class, unless you encounter undead, I guess, in which case you can just melt the hell out of them. But it has to be
Yeah.
like simultaneously incredibly useful, but just fucking boring to play. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think you can do stuff with that. I'm thinking a few examples that go through my head, but that you can do fun things that are narrow in some ways, but are still cool or worth it. And I'm actually thinking, like we've talked about some of these before, but I'm actually thinking about the Shikenja from Orient Adventures, because I run we play a game. My weekly players, we do a
That was
full
a
day of
type of
gaming.
wizard, right?
Yeah, shouldn't know
Yeah.
priest. Shikenja was kind of priest.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, the Wujen is
The
the
Wu
wizard.
Gen is the
But yeah,
wizard with all the weird
you have
taboos.
different.
I
Yeah,
remember that one.
yeah. You've got fighting monks. This is in 2E. You got fighting for priests. You've got fighting monks who are like martial artists. Sohei, who
Yes.
have limited spells but are good at fighting, and you have Shikenja. And Shikenja are like they're taboos. They don't really like. They don't want to kill people generally. And they get half XP from combat unless it's versus like undead or monsters, whatever. But they do have like extra stuff. They do have extra stuff for dealing with peasants, bonus reactions, things like that. And they have more stuff against, like they can hallow ground. They can do a ritual to kind of cleanse ghosts. Which the way we run it is there's a lot of ghosts with weird backstories. There's lots of kind of spirits, lots of
Oh, that's
strange
cool.
monsters, though. Yeah, it's a really different game, and it fits AD&D, and it fits AD&D much better than you'd think, given that you'd be like, oh, isn't this just the corruption of AD&D? You're like, no, it's just you have to kind of slightly reframe the kind of expectation, but not the
I,
mechanics. But I think you can make it
I would
fun.
imagine
Yeah,
with Orient, and
yeah,
correct me if I'm wrong, of course, but
yeah.
I would imagine with um so to me, it's almost like I'm drawing like a line or an axis
Mm-hmm.
between AD&D and Tecumel. And if you would
Mm-hmm.
move from AD&D towards Tecumel, right, you would find
Mm-hmm.
Oriental Adventure somewhere along that
Yeah,
line, where you're not going to play Oriental Adventures if you want uh pure challenge oriented. There has to be
yeah.
some appeal to like the sort of exotic Oriental stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You have to like at least be into like samurais or Japan or whatever
Yeah,
fuck, or Oni
yeah.
or weird
Yeah.
ghosts,
Oh,
right?
of
So
course.
then
Yeah.
yeah, you would emphasize that stuff more. So maybe like these sorts of classes where being able to purify locations and talk with peasants. This is really um, up to like how the DM runs his game, whether that is
Exactly.
a real fucking
It is
benefit or
design
not. And it's kind
oriented.
of like
I have
2E in a
actually put
nutshell,
up.
I think.
I have put Oriented Ventures stuff up on. I might have some other hex I could do, but it's like a hex crawl. I have put a few different packets up on my Patreon. I'll send you some on Discord at some point, just to show you some of the stuff. But like
For
the
sure.
idea that investigation and combat both matter. So it's still very much D&D, but you're just like, it's something where it's hard to explain, is maybe without just reading it or running it. But definitely you're emphasizing slightly different things, but you still need to make sure there are challenges for the players to resolve, and it's a combat game, right? So you still have to make sure there's combat in it, and that there's challenges that you deal with or can deal with via combat. So what we should do, I think we can probably read what one or two more short things, can't we?
Let's try to make it through at least this level of the caverns. And
well, I was going to say we've I think we've finished.
Nope.
We're not finished level 2 yet. Sorry,
correct.
There isn't a level 3. I was thinking there was a level 3, but it's that level 2 is split into 2. Is basically the
he has a false symbol of the oak leaf. Sorry, I'm just reading Brother Salaric. And the hidden symbol of the priests of Barzog. Okay.
Yeah, so he is also pretending to be good. Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, there are other. We've talked about this. Saying about faction. It's not quite faction play. You're not really told. What you need to do is red nails them. But like Villafort, for instance, here, it's a mummified parrot. There's disembodied spell book. There's a sleeping chamber. So this is an ex-factional home. A wizard who there's a bestial image on his door that magic mouse and can bite. This is just I think richly flavorful and interesting interactions, and I think the kind of the abandoned wizard's laboratory is a classic trope, I feel like.
A talking wizard's door that bites you if you don't fuck off is pretty good.
Await your turn. Back, I say. Patience until you are called. And the mummified parrot, Barot, they were here. Master, they've taken it. Several names of potential interest. I guess you as the DM have to decide who you want the players to go after to get the missing treasure.
I'm trying to capture the vibe, and it's like some like the vibe of this piece, and this is somewhere, I'm sure this is expressed somewhere in some 80s computer fantasy RPG, but it has like a certain sort of like this whimsical vanilla fantasy vibe, or it's not generic, right? It uses certain tropes that are familiar, but it's also like it's very specific. And here again, whatever, a talking fucking magic door, the mummified parrot, all this stuff.
Yeah. The magic in 38C. This is the thing. I like the magic. I would probably be more generous about how much it can, how many uses it has. Ring of spatial reorientation temporarily turns whole room complex sideways 90 degrees. So yeah, kind of. I guess there's a question there. Does that mean you can walk on the walls? It doesn't mean everything spins around and you fall to the wall.
I think everything fucking falls. Like just gravity goes.
That's what I read.
90 degrees.
But I was going to say it's interesting. I'd be tempted to make that slightly more than like you use it and then there's 2 rounds in it and you don't know that. And I say that because very low use magic items. The problem is that because at low levels, especially, you're not IDing stuff. You're not IDing function even. It could be, it's something where it'd be transmutation, I guess. I think transmutation. So you detect it as transmutation and that's it. It could be a bit harsh or limited that the player uses it and it's over.
How does it? How does it work? Right? Do you have an? Yeah, that's a bit of that is I guess a problem that more than one adventure suffers from, where it's like if you describe an item and then like the and its properties, the question is like, well, how can you infer that, right? Does it have a command word, or is there some clue, or are you just supposed to identify it? Like, I'm sure that's a fair criticism, I think.
Yeah, this is something it's something where basically because, and I don't think Gabor is not harsh with the cool stuff you can get in his adventures. So it's not like, oh man, he's only got one cool item and you're going to instantly use it and waste it. But it's something that you pick up. You read perfectly good, like really good adventures, but you can tell there's stuff where you're like, I want my players to enjoy stuff, and I want them to feel they've got rewards for being clever. And I think that the averagely intelligent player who is perfectly functional and good at the game won't get, I maybe that's me being soft, but like I want my players to enjoy the stuff. So I'd probably be like, oh yeah, it has 2 charges, and it lasts for 2 rounds each or something like that. Do it like that. Because you can put charges on rings, obviously. Yeah. So yeah, there's baths with classic ruined bath stuff, green slime, but there's different waters. Some of the waters can give you cure disease 1 and 3.
It's the classic. It's a weird pool room, but then
Yeah.
restyled. It's
It
another.
is. It's a weird pool room, but as if you've kind of been like, we've all seen. And I don't mean he's saying that players who go into it must all have played B1 or something, but it is a bit of we all know weird pool rooms. As you said, this is not aimed at absolute beginners. It's not aimed at people who've never opened a book before, though they will hopefully enjoy it. It is like oh yeah, you have read some stuff and you understand how this works, and here is, my take on some of these ideas of the many entrances to the cave complex dungeon.
Well,
And
yeah, it's almost like
exactly.
you have a series of like I guess you have a general sort of like idea, and then probably you have some sort of like unique set pieces that you or elements that you've come up with. But then at the same time, you also, it's still a dungeon. It's still sort of like beholden to dungeon design principles. So then of course there should be some weirdness there, and this is one sort of like permutation of it. I've actually toyed with the idea of I don't know, almost like cataloging like all of the sort of the different I guess like all of the different like weirdness or traps that you'd be able to find in old or in old dungeon modules to have sort of like almost like a lexicon. But I think probably the tricks and traps page in Greyhawk, so supplement 1 for OD&D, is probably covers most of it already. I don't know what
I think that there would be. I think there'd be a heuristic use and purpose. Genuinely, you'd have to select a representative sample. You can't be like, I'll do every AD&D adventure up until 1989.
No. Oh no,
you get what I'm saying. You'd have to. There'd need to be a selection process. But I think saying I will do 10 early first edition titles, or maybe do it at different times, but certainly 10 widely accepted to be good early first edition titles as a representative sample, and that can include judges. It can include judges guild
then
as well.
And actually in 1E, especially under Gygax D&D, that stuff became a lot less prevalent.
Oh so no, but what I mean is you can have it. You can have Caverns of Thracia and B1 if you want as examples, or B2. B2 has some of the weird stuff. Gygax is doing a weirder thing there. But then you can also have this set of AD&D modules and stuff. And just
B1 is a really good example, I think.
Yeah,
it is. There's quite a bit of those, of that stuff in there for sure.
Yeah, and on the note, basic Xenopus as well, of course, has some kind of odd bits and an odd vibe. But you could heuristically describe traps and say this is how often this kind of trap gets used. And this might seem useless, but I think what it'd be helpful for is thinking why designers tend to use it and where they tend to use it. That's stuff that we don't really do in our community particularly effectively. You get people who do describe stuff like that, and people who come up with tools like that. Gabor Lux, and his Melan diagrams for describing how a dungeon actually works physically is a good example. But we don't do this particularly systematically in our community.
No, and I'm not sure if it's okay. In some cases, right, let's take a really specific example, and this is we're off the beaten path. I'm gonna retire soon. Also, I gotta get up early tomorrow. In some very particular cases, right, like say let's take a very specific sort of what are complications I can use for treasure, and something that it exists as a sort of like code of practice, but it's not really might actually be in tips and tricks a little bit in Greyhawk Supplement 1, but just this idea of like, it's treasure but it's heavy, or it's treasure but you need to find a different buyer, or it seems valuable but it's actually worthless, all this, it's cursed, it's the list goes on and on. coated with poison. You can come up with a lot of, it's placed somewhere, but if you remove it, then something will collapse. It's fragile. It's broken, but if mended, then there's all these sort of like recurring complications that come back. And if you wanted to sort of convey that to like a new DM just trying to get started and trying to learn this weird sort of fucking classic adventure gaming play style, then maybe something like that can help if you just concentrate all that information for a bunch of topics. But I also have other shit on my list
exactly. Yeah,
to get
we
off
all have
first.
enough stuff we could be writing. I was
That
going to
might be
say
a good
here.
blog post, good fodder for
Yeah,
a blog post.
doing a partial summary of some of these ideas. Yeah.
Yes.
You're getting toward the very end of what's available in these caverns, and there's
We're
some
murdering
good
moss
treasure here.
men. I
Yeah,
see.
and helping an orc get out, and he's not very courageous, and he is just like an HD1 orc, so he's not very useful, and he's only got broken weapons. But he won't. I think it's not that he
And he
won't necessarily
seems to have
betray you.
stolen Sir Hugo's silver dinner
Dinner service,
service.
but he will
Very
gift you
good.
generously if you help him. I would say between this and the Cavern of the Mossmen, that's 1200 GP, which, as we said, that equates to 6,000 XP per house rules. And you think this is a couple of not. I think the Mossmen. The problem is the Mossmen. There's just a lot of them, and if you are second and third level, you could have a very bad time fighting 24 Mossmen.
Oh dear, yeah.
That's the problem. Is I think that's a classic one actually. The idea that sometimes you have to think players have to learn mathematics to be good at the game and be like, would I rather? It's a bit like, would I rather fight your level 2 party? Would you rather fight one ogre or 10 mossmen? Your answer should determine something about your ability to understand probability, right?
Yeah, sure. Do I have well? I mean, if the answer is I have a sleep spell, the answer is still I'd rather take the ogre. That's true.
Yeah. Like it's something where exactly there's things you can do with the ogre. I'd say you do get fun stuff. So I remember I think it was a second. He might have even been first level. It was mostly a third level party. We did Crail Freehold or whatever it's called. That good dungeon. That dungeon magazine. Yeah. We did. I ran that. And we ran the siege scenario. We used battle system. This was in the open table game. And they decided, because I was like, it's day 8 or whatever, and it says, they're bringing up siege weapons. So I was doing the timeline that's in the adventure. It's a good adventure, recommend it. And the players were like, we'll do a sally to try to destroy some of their siege weapons, because obviously we're going to be screwed, right, if they get up to us with these.
Yeah.
And they went out and they went around and they're like, okay, we'll do this. And then there's like an ogre who's the guy who he's the guy who's pulling the catapult forward. And so he's there guarding it. And the paladin was on a horse and was like, okay, I'm going to charge him with my heavy lance. And the heavy lance is 3d6 doubled while charging. And he rolled a natural 20, which is not, it wasn't a critical hit. We don't do that. But he needed an 18, 19 or 20 to hit this guy. And then he rolled 12 on the 3d6 doubled 24, which was exactly the ogre's HP. It was one of those perfect moments of D&D where you're like, he takes this crazy risk and he expects to die to basically to get rid of this, to distract this big guy, and has a story to really dine out on for quite a long time as a player and as a character.
Oh yeah.
D&D is great for those stories if you actually play it. But I think that the Mossmen, there's a challenging encounter there, but again, they're weak. Maybe you can do something to get rid of a bunch of them. Maybe you can't. They're mindless, so you can't sleep them. But maybe you can. This is a case for oil, military oil. Is and they are. They rot you. If they kill you, you rot. They have no treasure, but that's their victims. Barely sentient. But okay. I mean, what do you think then of Beware?
Buggers, yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
I was going to say we will spoil one more page just to literally finish Beware the Beekeeper. Oh, sorry, whatever.
And we have a new monster. Yeah.
Caverns. Yeah, the Shrine of Kaora. This is also fun. A couple of fun things. Crystal wall with magnetic ore, which could spin metal-wearing intruders around and eject them out for damage.
And so, indeed, a couple of like in the old again, you see it a lot more in 1E as well. quote unquote faction play, not really there. You can clearly negotiate with the
There's a
with
few
some of
things
these
you could
intelligence
do.
groups, but you do
Yeah.
find retainers
Hmm.
or NPCs in the dungeon
Or
as well. That's always a
temporary
good one.
followers, like
Yeah,
the
yeah,
orcs
yeah,
you can rescue.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interactive. It's constantly interactive, and Gabor's very careful to be like, reaction rolls matter. You can negotiate. That's what I mean about that side of that. That the truth in the OSR idea of combat as a failure state. Obviously, that is false as a general game statement, but as a look, the assumption
Yeah.
that this should always end in combat is false, and it is a failure state. And it limits the game, and it instead is saying, look, there's different ways to approach these problems, and maybe you can have someone who has a good reaction modifier leading the group, that kind of thing. But yeah, there's some fun stuff on this. Like I said, this is he starts hiding all his weird stuff here. Like there's the magnetic tunnel, there's rock grubs guarding eggs, amethyst eggs. There's a statue of a goddess who can accept you as a champion, giving you +1 HP per level or +2 if you're a full divine champion. I guess if you're a paladin who's sworn to her service. But yeah, I think that's great. That's really fun. Like he's hit. There's a reward here. That is not the this is extra tribes of stuff. It's just here's some fun extra rooms if you've got this far. You see that in some of Gary's adventures too. Like off the side on this side alley, there's just a bunch of weird stuff. So I appreciated that. I enjoyed that. And there's a new monster, the Mossman. I think we've looked at kind of one adventure out of 3 in this zine. And I think it's representative of the quality of Eccles from Fomalhaut. I think it's really good. It's really fun, really flavorful, distinct Gabor Luxian style. Luxian naturalism. No, we can't do that. That's we can't just call everything naturalism. But it is a distinctive sub-style, which I think works really well and is really memorable.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's...
Yeah. It's... You were saying? Has Prince died? Has he gone? Yeah, he's gone. It says device not connected. Oh no, a disaster. I'm assuming he's going to agree with me. Oh no, it looks like he's coming back. I can add him to the stage again.
All right, I'm back. Sorry about that.
You're back. Yeah. Don't worry. You seem to die. I was saying
definitely did not kill me.
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
I was just saying that. Yeah, it's definitely like a very it's a style he's been he's definitely honed over decades of actual play. And
yes, yeah, it is exactly. It's been written by someone who's run a lot and has written a lot. And the style is distinctive in that sense that I was joking. We can't just call everything naturalism. Like this is Luxian naturalism, but there's a way in which this is its distinctive style, isn't it? It's something where it's not about the naturalism. Actually, that's not. He is Gygaxian in instinct for that. But it's the aesthetic, and the aesthetic is something which does affect gameplay because it means, what are the kinds of things, is everything a horrendous trap? Is everything a multi-part puzzle? Those are aesthetics some DMs go for, and he doesn't do that. There's a distinctive vibe to how you interact with stuff, which I think is really strong. Prince, oh no. I think we should give him one chance to come back in. We'll get him to sign off and apologize to everyone. I think there's distinctive style, and it's well worth checking out. I think Castles Intel, if you're looking for something big, like a single, here's a campaign package, or Kasura. I've not read Kasura, so I'm not recommending it, but I know that is like here's a campaign setting. Otherwise, yeah, Echoes from Fomalhaut 1 to 8. Up, here we are. He's back. No, he's not. He's back. He's not. Yeah. Okay, Prince, do you want to give your signing off thoughts?
Yeah, geez, the internet have decided to cut us short. Yeah, no, it's been lovely, Owen. Might get there all the way. It's a little bit short on time, but I really enjoyed this chat, and I'm definitely
good.
covering more Gabor Lux stuff in the
Yeah, we'll
future.
have to do that another time. I need to check. We actually do have a show. We actually have a plan for the next few months, but I don't remember what it is. I know we'll do another Wyvern song at some point, and I think we talked about doing a Monster Manual read through, didn't we? Or partial Monster Manual read through.
Oh dear, which
Yeah.
one? Yeah,
I don't know. Yeah,
I'll have to
people
decide.
can
Yeah, for
nominate.
sure.
People can nominate. There, people are going to be like MC7 character from
The
second
worst
edition.
one. Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually a good one. But yeah, no, you can imagine some people going, "My favorite is this one." You're like, "No, I'm not.
It's
I'm not reading that."
planar. The planar Monsters Compendium Appendix 3 is definitely the
Yes,
one to aim
that's the
for. Just
elemental
the
one. I
tail
do
end
not
of
have
2E.
MC3. Ah, do you know you mock? I have MC1 and 2 for Planescape there,
You
right next to
don't
me.
want MC3. It sucks.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, it's
garbage.
elemental. So I've used a couple of things from that in my Earthplane adventure, which you've read. But yes, it's not
Yes.
the most important thing. It's not the most important thing.
Did you? No,
yeah.
I'm not to the same. You know, do you remember? I was mostly there for like the whole life cycle of like third edition, and at some point they got to like Monster Manual 4 and 5, and you know, you could tell that they kind of ran out of ideas. So then they were like, it's a spider made of lava. Okay, all right. What else do we have? 5 more golems. It's a
Well, the funny
shadow
thing is, of
golem. Like they
course,
just
sometimes that feels good. You read this spin on this character, this monster, like, this is amazing.
yes,
And then, but
yes,
I don't know quite what the distinction is. It's the thing that eventually you can tell they're not doing it because I think one thing is sometimes it's that you can see things come out of play where they're like, I came up with this fun idea and I came up with some special mechanics that were kind of distinctive, like all the molds, Gary's molds.
right.
But then you can tell where someone's just like, we just have to reskin it, and now it does fire damage.
Yeah.
And
I ran out of
it's
an
a fake.
idea, so let's do another group of mold. We need space to fill, a couple of dragons, more
exactly.
golems.
It's the difference between the thing you're playing versus the thing you're writing because you have to sell a book. I think that's the difference, isn't it?
Yeah,
And you can tell. You can tell. Yeah, I was going to say, I know 4E went to 3 monster manuals plus a couple of extra kind of bonus little booklets. 2E obviously has the most, but 2E had the justification. And I said it's having run a lot of this stuff. The justification of having settings. Yeah, it's the settings. Yeah. So Dark Sun, which is great. I love running Dark Sun. I love it in AD&D. And there's plenty of that on the channel. We'll be going back there sometime next year, hopefully, on the stream. But yes, it's, you can see why you have to have a distinctive gazetteer there. And they've come up with fun ideas. Like, what are some weird ideas you could do for Dark Sun? But yeah, there's sometimes you can tell that there's just, this is another golem, this is another kind of goblin or whatever. Yeah, there's definitely times they run low on ideas. But yeah, here people can have their Mossman. They can screen cap it and steal it from Gabor, and have a Mossman in their game as well. But yes, I recommend Gabor. Prince recommends Gabor, and yeah, put your recommendations or requests for which monster manual we should look at in the comments. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Owen. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thank you.